Please subscribe, like, and share if you like the content. I will be uploading more videos on the 1025R on any maintenance and repairs. Today I'm going to do the 200-hour maintenance on the John Deere tractor. My tractor is a 2020 1025R, and we're going to go through everything you're going to need to do at the 200-hour maintenance. First thing we're going to do, after you pop your hood up, is there's a yellow pin, and you will turn it and pull it. And at that point, you're going to grab hold of and slide it back and pop it out. And at that point, you're exposing the engine compartment. Once you have both panels on each side removed, now you're completely access to everything you'll need. Whenever I pop my panels, I like to just go around, and double check your hoses, check wire connections, run through. We're gonna go through and check some, a lot of your nuts and bolts. Always definitely squeeze your hoses, check those, see if they're still soft and pliable, no cracks, no loose wires. We're going to be changing the oil, we're going to be changing the filters, we'll be doing the diesel filters, and also underneath we will be doing the hydraulics underneath. And then we'll grease and lube. Also, before I start, I like to get some compressed air if you have a compressor. And we're going to go around and we're going to blow everything off, clean everything. We're going to clean out the filter, we'll blow out the radiator. We're going to check all fluids, radiator. So we are going to replace pretty much all your fluids anyways. But just go around your machine and do a typical maintenance of checkpoints, nuts, bolts, hoses, wire connections, things of that nature. It's good to do all at this time, at this point. Sometimes with vibration, you can end up, with a loose wire. Or, vibration will loosen up some nuts and bolts. So go around and as much as you can, and with a torque gun, preferably if you have one, and just double check everything. Okay, and like I had previously said, at this point is when I'm going to check at least like all my belts, hoses, wire connections on each side as I go a little bit here, before I proceed into other things of changing. But reach in there. This is your alternator. Check your belt. I mean, they'll last you a long time. This is a fairly new machine, but as they age, if you see any cracks, replace it. Here's your starter. This is all going to be on the left side if you're sitting on the tractor, in the engine compartment. This here is your exhaust and muffler. So we come over on this side, which is now going to be the right side if you're sitting on the seat. There's one oil fill. You also get another one that's on the top of your engine. And again, check your hoses, squeeze them. They'll get cracked, they'll get hard. If a hose is hard and not pliable, that means it's going bad. Any coolant and hoses in that sense should always be pliable. You should be able to squeeze them easily. Here's our oil filter that we'll be replacing, and here is your diesel filter that we'll be replacing. So again, just do a general, go around, check your wire connections, check your hoses, everything you can almost visibly see. Just a good idea. Most often you're not going to have any kind of situation, nothing loose, until you possibly more until the machine gets older. Again, this is a fairly new, it's only a two-year-old machine, but it's a good practice. So again, it's going to get a little loud. I'm going to try not to talk too much because I know you can't hear me when this is going. But you'll see down, it's hard to see with the camera, but you can see at the bottom of that radiator, there is some dirt that's sitting down in there. So that's why it's a good idea to blow these things out once in a while, clean out all that, because you know when you're running for grass, if you cut grass with it, you will overheat with this machine if you neglect to clean this once in a while. So here we go. Try to get behind. You can't do it real hard. Get behind here. That dirt too also. It's hard to get to. At this point, I just blew it all out, and it's hard to see, but you can see now all that's gone. That was down sitting at the bottom of the radiator. That's where it's going to first start, is down there. At the same time, I did check my batteries, check your connections here, see if they move. Again, with vibration on a machine like this, and that's any tractor, because there's a lot of vibration in these machines, things will loosen up. So that's a good thing to always check anything. And at this point, which I know my fluids are good for my coolant. If you can see, I'm in my, and I check this almost every time I run my machine. Not everybody will, but again, if you don't, keep up on this kind of stuff, this machine will overheat. But as long as you're keeping that typical maintenance, they'll just keep running all day for hours. Mine is good, so I don't need to add anything, but if you should, always keep a rag with you, before you ever open anything. Just keep any dirt and debris to fall in. Keep this thing always, at its mark. If you keep this clean, if you keep fluids in there properly, you keep your radiator and your debris screen clean, you shouldn't overheat. You can run these things for hours and you won't overheat, as long as you're keeping that maintenance for the coolant system. What's nice, and it's a lot of stores, you can get your 200-hour maintenance package, in all one shop, one box. I always buy everything from the Green Parts store. You don't have to. There's many stores that'll sell it, but it is nice when you get the whole thing in one shot of everything you're gonna need. And we will be going through each part of this, what we're gonna replace. All right, so now that you got the package open, here's what you're gonna end up getting for the 200 maintenance. You're gonna have 4 gallons of your hydraulic oil and transmission. It's both. You're gonna send you 3 of your quarts of oil, plus the oil filter. You got an inner and an outer air cleaner filter. There's an inline underneath, which will be your inline fuel filter. Then you get your cartridge for your glass filter that you will have in your engine compartment. And then you'll get also a hydraulic filter that's underneath. And we're gonna go through all those, but that's what you get inside that package when you order it as a one-shot deal. Okay, so now, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the air filter. So what you'll do is you're gonna pull that little tab, you're gonna actually twist it and then pull it out. And then there's the cap. And I'm gonna blow this out, as usual. I'm gonna pretty much clean anything once I remove it to put it back. So here's your outer filter, and you can see how dirty it is, and it's only a 2-year-old tractor. I mean, but I've put a lot of miles, 200 miles on it. I'm actually a little less, but so just take it, yank it, and if you look, you can see how much different that is and why it's so important to replace this. So, just like your coolant, if you're not letting this machine breathe or cool, you will have problems. So the more you can keep this thing cool and let the air flow, the less problems you'll have. So that's the outer. But you also have what they call an inner. Okay? And then same thing, you just wiggle it out, pull it out. I'll blow all this out. Now these ones don't get as dirty because the outer one is the one that catch really majority of everything. You can blow them out once in a while, and I've done that in between. And I live in Florida, and you know, we got a lot of sand, a lot of dust when you're cutting grass, things of that nature. So I do suck a lot. That's why that filter is very, very dirty. You know, some areas you may not. It depends on where you live. But again, this is your inner. You can see, it's hard to tell because of the color of it, how dirty it is. But again, there's your new ones. So keep up on that. Very important. Okay, so I blew everything out. I didn't want to do it on camera. It's so loud. But anyways, once you clean it, then you get your inner. You know, obviously you got the one hole and a cap on that, so it's pretty much self-explanatory which way it's going to go. Then you're going to push that one into that center hole. Okay. And then you're going to take your outer, same thing. It's pretty much only one way it's going to go. So it's not like you can basically put them in wrong. And you're going to go ahead and push that in and seat that one also. You know, give it a little push till you feel it seats. Then again, you take your cap, make sure your baffle is towards the bottom. And you're going to put that on. And it's not going on real easy right now. Let me try it again. And you're going to turn it. Then you're going to push it on and turn it. Then once you get it on there, you just push it in your clip and you're good to go. Now, you hear a lot about air cleaners, about problems with the older machines. This is only a 2-year-old machine, so this one had the upgraded from original air cleaner location. You can see it's actually attached up here to what you could call a firewall. It's just a piece of up by the radiator. But a lot of older machines, and you can see they still have the mount on the machine, but yet the newer ones don't have it there. A lot of your older ones, and you'll hear a lot about, is when the air cleaner is actually attached to the top of your engine. And that's where you hear a lot about how people have had problems actually cracking out of here and breaking off. So it was a bad design. It's mostly going to be on your older machines. I don't know when they actually, what years they finally changed it. But again, if you have it there, it's a good idea to get the retrofit brackets and move it. Mine came already done, but there is machines still out there that have their air cleaner right there on top of that engine. And if you see in a lot of your forums and things like that, a lot of people complain about it and end up it breaking and cracking off. So just be aware. At this point, you're going to climb underneath and directly under your engine, you're going to see your oil pan. And then here is your actual nut that we'll be removing to drain our oil, and that itself is a 17 millimeter. So we're going to loosen that up and we're going to drain it into our oil pan. So now we're going to take our wrench and then loosen her up, and you can already see she's starting to drip. Make sure your oil pan is under there, and slowly take her off. You can see it needs it because it's very dark. So that machine definitely was needing her oil change. And there we go. And then once you got your oil pan under there, just let her drain, and then we'll go back up and open up some things up top. All right, so you can see now that majority of the oil has came out as soon as I released the filler. But you know, you can come up here, you can remove your dipstick. That's gonna, you know, let it get some air in there so it drains a little quicker. Or you can relieve one of your filler caps. And again, it's gonna let air get behind it and make sure you get everything out. You know, I let it drip for a little bit, give it a little time. I mean, most of it's out already. Air's behind it. It's gonna flow of any other drips. And then we're gonna do the oil filter next. So keep the pan under there. My pan, you know, if you don't have a long pan, my pan is long enough that I can keep it still underneath the engine, let it as it drips. But I also have enough room here that I can actually take my oil filter out, and it's gonna be all still in the pan without having to move it away from the fill. Now maybe you don't have that, but my pan, I can let it drip as I'm still doing the oil filter to get a little bit of drips of old oil out. All right, so there's a variety of things you can use for an oil filter. This is actually a cap, you know, it goes on a ratchet. You can actually put on and it turns it off. This is what they call a band changer. It's a wrap goes on and it's flexible and it tightens up. And then you got a wrench that's actually for different multiple sizes. Now here's the thing, these are not very big oil filters. Those ones actually are a little too big for this one. They fit my cars. But this one, because of it being a little small, those ones actually don't work. But you can get sizes in those that will work for this machine. But because I got these universal pliers, we're gonna come over to the oil filter, and sometimes by factory, now I've changed mine before, and you hear a lot of people, and I had it too, when you go to change it for the first time, for some reason the factory really puts them on tight. So it's a bear sometimes to get that first filter off. I didn't have to. I was able to finally, just with my pliers, to get it released. It was tight. But there is times where you just may not be able to get it to move. So you drive a screwdriver and just pound it right through it on the end here. You're not going to harm nothing to the engine. You just pound a screwdriver right through it. And then because of that screwdriver then will give you some good leverage to really get it to move. I don't know why they put it on so tight. But again, mine's been changed. The first time was, so you don't want it real tight. So anyways, you know, I'm loosen it. These are very handy because of these type filter wrenches, because they really work for a lot of them, where the other ones are more specific to sizes. So once you get it loose, you know, then you can just take it off with your hand. And again, I have a pan underneath. I will put that there, let it drain. And same thing, you know, give it a few minutes, let it drain out. Once it's totally not dripping a lot, then I'll take my rag and I'll clean it up before we put a new one on her. Okay, so now, you know, once it's off, you're going to take your new oil filter. There's actually the John Deere's manufacturer's number. So before you put it on though, you want to just take a little bit of oil. It doesn't matter if it's the old oil. You just want a little lubricant. So you're going to put a little bit around on the rubber. And then you're going to take a rag. Now again, clean her up before you put her on. All right, so again, once you've cleaned it, once you put a little oil around on the rubber ring for your seal, you're gonna go ahead and install her. the thing about an oil filter, you don't want it real tight like the factory does. So you're gonna put it on by hand, just hand tighten it. Take your wrench, and technically, you know, once it's after it's hand tightened, you feel that seal, it's really only half a turn, maybe 3/4 of what you wanna do. For some reason they put it on tight, but so hand tighten it, half to 3/4 turn after that, and then that's it. You don't need it overly tight. So that's it. All right, like I had said previously, your engine actually has 2 fills. You got one on the side, and there'll actually be another one at the top. So you could use either one. Depends on how easy. I think this one's a little hard to get in with your funnel unless you have a very long tail on your funnel. So I'm going to use this one, the one on the side. So undo it, and be careful because there is a rubber piece that will be on them for their seals. Just make sure you don't lose it, it doesn't fall off. Again, when I remove anything, I already previously wiped it before taking it off, but when you take anything off, you know, best thing you can do is use a rag. Always wipe everything. Now, this is a tip. Most people know this with oil. And it doesn't matter what it is, any oil quartz. Technically, you don't want to pour oil like this, okay? What happens when you pour it like this, you don't get air behind the oil and it'll dribble. It'll gluck, gluck, gluck type situation. They even put it, if you look, is on the bottle itself. And I know a lot of people may not even pay attention to it. And then there's a lot that may not even know this. But when you actually put oil in, you actually turn it this way. What that does is allow air to get into the bottle so it flows much smoother. And I'll show you when we're pouring it, but just a quick tip on, you know, any oil container. All right, so now it's time to put the oil in, and I'm going to demonstrate what I was just saying about the way you pour. So when you actually turn the, you know, it's hard to see on the camera, and you go and pour it like this. See how it's not coming out real good? Okay. But when you actually turn it the other way, it actually will flow much quicker, much smoother. Okay. So what I'll do is, you know, I like to put, you know, at least 2, maybe 2.5 quarts in, and then I will actually, you know, check the dipstick, see what my levels are before I put it all into the actual engine, because it's best to have less than more. Much easier to put more in than actually if you have to take any out. So I like to put at least 2, if not a little bit more. Check the dipstick and see where you're at. So I'm going to go ahead and put my oil in. But I'm not going to bore you to sit here and watch it. All right, so I put 2 quarts in so far. I'm going to pull the dipstick out, and we're going to check it to see where we're at with 2 quarts, even though we know we need more than that. The oil filter itself is going to take some, but I'd like to just see where we're at with 2. And you can almost, I don't know if it's showing on the camera, but it's already in the middle of the fill line, but the oil filter is still dry, and that's going to use up some oil. So I'm going to put about another little less than half of a quart in there, because I know that's going to take about that. And then that's it. I'm not going to put it all in right now. Put a little bit more, and then start her up and check it again. Okay, so at this point, I put 2.5 quarts in. So we've replaced the filter, we've drained the oil, make sure the oil plug is back in. I put 2.5 quarts into the engine. We know right now that the oil filter is dry. So what we'll do now is we're going to turn her on, and we're only going to run, 30 seconds, a minute or so. Just so the oil starts flowing, it's going to fill the oil filter because it's dry right now. And then after that, we will recheck it because we're going to know we're going to need a little bit more. But again, better to put a little bit more in than have too much in, because to have to take it out is not an easy task. So here we go. We will start her up. We're going to let her run, 30 seconds or so, and we'll check it after that. Fresh oil filter at this point is filled. I'm going to shut her off, and then we'll recheck it, and we know we'll have to put a little bit more in. Alright, so now that I shut her off, we're going to pull a dipstick, clean her off, check and see where we're at. We know we'll probably be a little low now that the oil filter is filled. And again, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but it's still midpoint, but it definitely can add some more. So that's what we're going to end up doing. We'll add a little more and keep checking the dipstick as we do it. Again, be careful of overfilling. So I'm going to add a little more, keep checking the dipstick, and then that'll be it. All right, so in all, I've added close to 3/4, or 3 quarts. Really a little less. I still got a little left of my third, because again, I like to put it in little by little, check the dipstick, run it again for just a little bit, check for leaks, see if you have any leaks anywhere. If you have something dripping, something's wrong. And I'm gonna, at the end of the video, put all the John Deere specs of fluid levels, of how many quarts of oil, things of that nature. So I'll have that at the end of the video. I've always done all my mechanical work myself, no matter if it's my tractors, my golf carts, my vehicles. So I've done mechanically for a long time. Even what the manufacturer's specs say, I don't ever just go in 100% dump in exactly what they're telling me. I never have. I like to go by feel and check in, instead of just dumping because it says to dump that much in and just do it. Because the thing is, especially like with oil or with anything, but if you put too much in and the manufacturer says, oh, just dump 3 quarts in, you do. And it's not that probably that's going to be not overfill, but overfilling is actually a bad thing, especially any engine with oil. You have too much oil in there, that can actually cause problems. You can spin bearings, it can do things. So that's why I don't go just exactly by what they're telling me. I like to put it in by feel, checking, things in that nature. And I'd rather be just a shy low than actually too much. But you do what you want, and I will put the manufacturer's specs in at the end of the video. So just to recap, at this point, we took the sides off initially to get access. With a compressor, blew the whole engine and everything out, checked the battery tightness in the cables, see if they're loose, blew out the air radiator, checked the radiator fluid. Mine was good because I always watch it. We took apart the air cleaner, replaced the outer and the inner, again blowing everything out with compressed air, put that back in, drained the oil, replaced the oil filter, and I have just shy of 3 quarts back into the engine, which I'm happy with. She's full. I didn't want to overfill her. So at this point, that's it for the oil. So she's done for that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the actual diesel filter in the engine compartment. We have one underneath that's an inline, but at this point, our next step, I like to do everything in the engine compartment first before I have to start climbing under the tractor for the other items. So we're going to go ahead and move on to this see-through diesel filter. You can see it's dirty, and I'll show it when we pull it out. So that's our next thing. All right, so here we are onto the actual diesel filter. You know, the first thing is I always put a bucket underneath, because you know you're gonna spill a little bit. I got a towel and a bucket on the floor just below it. The first thing you want to do though is that's your shut-off valve. So you want to turn that off. This way it shuts your fuel line off. The good thing with my universal oil filter wrench, it's very good for this too, but you don't need it. You can use whatever you have that's like a pair of pliers, something in that sense. Again, so you turn this and you're gonna, oh, believe it or not, I'm going backwards. So you're gonna remove it, loosen it up enough that until you can get your hand, which she looks like she's pretty much almost there now. So undo that, have a hold on her, because it's full of fuel right at this point. So, you know, she's starting to drip in my hand, because again, she's full. So take her down. I got a pot underneath to catch any drippings, and slide her down. You can see she's full. There's a rubber O-ring we'll be replacing. And then there's all the fuel there. There's actually a spring inside it too. It's hard to see right now because I'm dumping it out right now. So I just dumped the fuel out into my bucket. And now we'll take, you can see the filter is sitting there, and it will stay by itself. You just take the cup itself off first. So once you have the cup off, go ahead and just, you know, wiggle it and pull until she releases. She's in there. So there we go. Now again, there's fuel in it, so that's why I have a bucket underneath. And then I'll show you the difference between this one and the new one. So it does its job. And again, I got a towel underneath, and I also have a bucket that's collecting, you know, all the diesel fuel that's dripping at this moment. So it's not just dripping on my floor. I do got a bucket underneath. You just can't see it in the video. So I'll show you the new filter, old filter, and then we'll put it back together. All right, so now that it's disassembled, so that's what I put underneath the tractor to catch the diesel fuel, because you're always gonna have some, and if you don't, it's gonna be on your garage floor. This is full of diesel when you remove it, so it's really hard not to spill any, so it's good to have a catch pan. Inside of this, you're going to have a spring that's going to be in the bottom inside, and your filter will be up here. There's a spacer ring that goes on your filter, okay? And you can see, you know, how dirty the old one is versus the new one. You know, just like your air cleaner, just like your cooling system. If you don't keep your fuel running clean, you're gonna have problems. The machine will start running lousy, your RPMs are gonna drop. Very important. So, you know, like any machine, filters, very important to keep maintenance on. Not hard to do, but it can lead to problems if you don't you know, stay on top of it. You get a new O-ring that's going to go on top of the container, so we're replacing that, and then that's it for now. We're going to put it back together. All right, so now that I've cleaned, you know, I wipe everything down before I reinstall something. So what we're going to do now is we're going to reassemble. So make sure you have this, put a new O-ring on. Okay, we took the old one off, put a new one on. All right, and you have a spring that's inside there. So there's a little nubbit, little tit at the bottom in there. You want to drop your spring inside, and it sits on that little bottom piece that you'll see in there. Okay, so I don't think you can see it, but it's inside now on the bottom. New O-ring, and we'll put that down because next we're going to reinstall the filter and then put that back in place. All right, there's the new filter. There's your little spacer that will go on top. You're going to make sure you just find, you know, the center. You'll feel it. You're going to go ahead and just push it up. That's all you have to do. It will stay there, and then that's it. Go ahead and take now your cover sheet. I always will put a little diesel fuel around my O-ring. It's always good to put oil or something always on an O-ring before install. And then again, we're just going to slide her up. Gonna let her make sure she seats where she needs to seat, and then go ahead and reinstall your nut. So it's hard to do with one hand. So get her to get in there, but she's not going. Just got to get them threads to bite. There she goes. All right. So now once she's screwing on, again, like everything, hand tighten. Okay. But don't overdo anything ever. Now there's a little spring at the bottom that's pushing on there. All right. Then I'll take my pliers. Again, don't over tighten things, and then that's it. Okay, so she's back on. You know, we'll turn the fuel back on, but because I'm still going to do the one underneath as far as the inline filter, I'm going to keep her off right now. So in reality, I could turn her on, turn the key, but not, you don't have to run the machine, just turn the key to on, and this will pump with the fuel pump and fill her back up. We're gonna do that later because I still have the underside to do. So I'm gonna keep her off right now, but at this point, this is done. All right, here, you know, just a quick mention about your old fluids. Normally what I'll do is I'll take it out of my drain pans and I'll just throw it in any empty containers I have. And I know most people know this, but some don't. So take your oil or your fluids, whatever it is, put them into some kind of container you got. And most all local auto parts actually have either a bin you dump your fluids into, or they will just take it from you free of charge. They don't charge you. So, you know, put it in a container, bring it to an auto, you know, one of your local auto parts, and they'll take it from you, or you can just dump it in one of the recycle bins. But, you know, you don't want to throw it into the landfill. But, again, any local auto parts store, and it's free of charge. All right, so now there is some that will say you don't need to take the tire off to do this underneath work, and you probably can, you know, but the thing is, it's a lot easier to get to everything and work on it if you remove at least the left rear tire, and that's what we're going to do now. I got my jack ready to go, so we're going to go ahead and take the left rear tire off, put a jack stand underneath, so we can get to the items that we need to do underneath. All right, so at this point I removed the left rear tire, jacked her up, you know, put a jack stand under her. Don't work under the equipment if you don't have a jack stand. At this point, the machine ain't moving. I actually lowered her back down to have that tire on the ground, and this one's just supported by jack stand. You know, they say you don't have to remove the tire, but it's a lot harder because you got to get to that screen that's right here, and I'll be showing you later. But without the tire, real hard to get that out because you got to pull it way out. You'll see. We want to get to the fuel filter, which is going to be right under here. Okay, we'll be doing that. We're going to change the hydraulic fluid, which the nut is down under here, and we also want to take our filter out. It's going to have a magnet in it. Also, we got another filter that we'll be putting in, like an oil filter, but it's a hydraulic filter. So again, easier to take the tire off and put it up on a jack stand. You know, supposedly you could do it without it. I would think that'd be really hard. But you know, it is unfortunate because like my tires are fluid filled, and I know a lot of people's are. So you know, when it's fluid filled, you know, just be careful because they're heavy once you want to get them off, and then, you know, move them around because the fluid adds another, I don't know, probably about 100 pounds to that tire. So just be careful if they're fluid filled. I recommend fluid filled for all your tires, especially the rear, because of these tractors having short wheel span. You know, there's a lot you want to search as far as tipping over. I would like to get some spacers at some point. I just haven't done it yet. Some wheel spacers. But definitely fluid filled is one good thing to do. I got 1,000 pounds on a ballast box full of sand that hangs on my 3-point, and then between the fluid filled tires, you know, I easily are pushing 1,000 or so pounds in the rear when I'm using my front end bucket. Don't use your front end bucket if you're not using counterweight in the back. You do need the counterweight. Basically, is what's in the rear is what you can do in the front. These tractors are rated for around, I think, 900,000 pound lift. So that means you need 900,000 pounds back here. So between a ballast box and fluid filled tires, that's going to counter your weight for your front. I highly recommend it. But so, okay, but the tire's off, and we're going to start getting into, first thing we'll do is we'll finish up with the fuel. We're going to go ahead and get under here, and we'll remove the inline diesel fuel line, and we'll be showing you that next. All right, so here's the inline fuel filter. Okay, now here's the problem that I'm not going to really be able to video it because it's going to be real tough. Because technically what I'm going to do is, you can see these little spring clips right here. You're going to actually squeeze them with your pliers. You're going to squeeze down on those and push and slide them off of this. The only problem is you got a lot of fuel that's, you know, if you got fuel in your tank, this thing's going to flow. Once you undo any of these, your fuel is just going to start flowing out. Now, there's a lot of people, and it works. You could, there actually is some locking grip pliers. They call them hose clamps, pliers, and you could put them on here and squeeze the hose and lock it in, and that will crush the hose and then, you know, keep the fuel out. Now, I've seen people change these without doing anything. The only problem is they end up with, you know, half a gallon of diesel all over themselves in the floor doing it. So they do it live per se, and just let the fuel flow as they're taking it off, putting a new one in. I think that's a mess. I don't recommend that. I only got about a quarter tank in the machine right now. So what I'm going to do, and I can't really video it because it's so tight here, is I've got my diesel can, and I'm going to put a funnel here. I'm actually going to undo this one, slide it out, let it go into the funnel, and again, I only got about a quarter tank, so I'm going to take this off first, let it go into the funnel, go back into a diesel can, and I'm going to drain my tank down.
before I remove the rest of this, and then I'll probably be able to video to show the rest of it and the reinstall. But as far as just undoing this right now and putting it into my diesel can, I don't think I'll be able to film that, and that's what I'm going to do right now.
All right, so I drained my fuel tank back into the can because otherwise it's really messy for this. So really there's nothing left. There's a little bit of drips, you know. So at this point, now you want to go ahead and get the little hose clamp here. There, bitch. You're gonna lift it up, and then go ahead and pull your filter off. Okay. So now she's off. Again, we'll show the old and the new. So you can see the two differences, okay? Now there is an arrow. There is an arrow. I know you probably can't see it on the film, but there is a little arrow for direction, okay? So it goes like this. This is from the fuel tank to the engine. So you want your cone, your paper cone that's in there, actually that direction, okay? So you just want to make sure you have it in the right direction when you put it on. So pop your new one back in. Get your hose clips, slide them back over, okay? Take your other back hose, that's over here. Got a little fuel dumping out, but we'll go ahead and push this one in into its little connector here, okay? Slide it nice and tight, which I'm still not on 100%, so you know, you may have to use a pair of pliers. Get a pair of pliers up in there if you have to, but you want to definitely make sure it's all the way connected. Okay. May even want to go a little more. Like I said, you want to really make sure she's all the way in, all the way on. There's little nubs on it, so you'll definitely know. For some reason, she's not going 100% yet, so I'm gonna get her pushed all the way on that second nub a little bit more, and then, you know, put on the hose clip, and then, you know, that's all. She'll be done. All right, so there's the new filter, the inline fuel filter. Got it in the right direction, got the hose clamps back on. I'm gonna put the fuel back into the tank since I drained it, and then we'll go proceed to let the fuel pump recharge the fuel line, and I'll show you that. All right, so put the fuel back in the fuel tank. You can see. Now, what we're gonna do, come back over here. This is still dry. We have the shut off. So at this point, we're gonna turn that on. So now we just turn the valve to on position. That's empty. We're gonna end up turning the key, but not turn it all the way to run. Because what that's gonna do is kick on the electric fuel pump, and you'll see it's gonna pressurize the system. Here she comes. The electric pump right now is pressurizing the fuel system. Okay. So now my fuel system is completely pressurized. She's full here. The other inline filter at this point is going to be full, and we'll do all the lines. So she is now under pressure for fuel. So now at this point, go around, you know, check for leaks, see if you have anything wet or nice and dry. We'll come back over here where our inline fuel is. Go up in here, look at our inline fuel filter. Are we nice and dry? Check it with your fingers, you know, see if you feel anything wet. So at this point, I'm nice and dry here. We're nice and dry over there. So fuel pressure is full now, inline, and we're good to go. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna change the transmission and the hydraulic fluids. So you wanna get under from the rear of the tractor and look underneath, and you're gonna find your drain plug. Okay, so we're gonna do that drain plug. Now, keep in mind, and I got a very large pan here, very large pan. We're gonna be draining roughly 4 gallons of fluid. So you need a big container. If by chance you don't have a big enough one, you know, unfortunately you'll just have to like undo it, let it fill, put the plug back in, so you can you know, dump your can and put it back under and undo it again. But I do got a very large one here. This thing will hold 10 gallons. So again, you're gonna be draining roughly 4 gallons of fluid here. So we're gonna get ahead and undo that drain plug. All right, so here we are, and it's actually 13 millimeters. I'm gonna get under there, unloosen the plug with your wrench. Once you get it done with hand tight, unscrew it with your fingers, and once you get it off, it's just gonna flow. We will open the cap up above to let air in, and that will drain a lot quicker. So there she goes. So right now she's flowing. I'm gonna go up top and we'll open the cap. All right, so once you undo the plug, get behind your tractor here, and you'll see the cap for the fluid, okay? Undo that, because what we'll do is let some air run behind, which is gonna make it flow much quicker, much simpler. Then just leave it off. All right, so just like the oil filter, we're gonna use a wrench, and you know, undo it with a wrench so you can get your hands on it. So we'll get the wrench up in there and then get it loose. All right, once you get it loose enough with your hand, again, you're gonna have fluid come out. You wanna do it. It's probably hard with my hand in the way. I have no choice on how tight it is here. There, so I got her loose. I'm gonna dump, let some of it flow because it's full. Let it fall out. You know, get as much liquid as you can out of it. Okay, and then we're gonna slide her out of here. So at this point, we've removed the hydraulic filter, and again, very similar to a fuel filter. All right, so we'll let that sit a little bit and let her drain. All right, so now once we have it drained, which is still dripping, but gonna get on the left side of the tractor here in front of the left wheel, and you're gonna see another filter. Looks like an oil filter. That's right under the frame right here, and that's gonna be for the transmission hydraulic fluid. So we'll go ahead and remove that next. Okay, so like we said before, with all your filters, you're gonna have a rubber ring for your seal. So again, same thing, put a little hydraulic fluid or oil on it, okay? You always wanna do that for your new seals. Go ahead and line her up with the hole. Like as usual, hand tighten only, okay? Hand tighten. Oh, I see a piece of stick or something, okay? Hand tighten. Oh, there's another one. Yeah, that's the thing with a tractor. So hand tighten it up until you feel the seat of the rubber, okay? As much as you can do with your hand first. And then we'll come back with a wrench. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna turn it about 1/2 to 3/4 after hand tight. Okay, so filter is first hand tightened, and then I got my wrench, and I turned it 1/2 to 3/4 to seat the seal. And that's it. So there's the new hydraulic fluid filter installed. Next, we'll do the screen and the magnet. All right, so now this is actually the last piece of the maintenance. What we're going to do is we're going to take this rubber hose and we're going to move it up. Looks like they put this one behind, which is a bastard. So we're going to move these clamps first. We're going to get these clamps off so we can pull this hose off. There's an Allen key wrench. Let's see. An Allen nut right there. I got it at 7/32. So we'll take that out, and what's going to happen once we get that off, this part is going to actually slide out, and that's your screen, and there's a magnet inside that we'll clean. So let's go ahead and take the the hose clamps off. They make it very tough with these things. There's one, and there's another one at top, but unfortunately they actually put the clip in the back, which is really dumb of them. So I'm going to shut the video off so I can get that one off, but it is up on the top one in the back. Alright, so now we need to get that off, and that is, I'm using a T40 star bit. And we're going to get in here and undo this, which is going to give access to the filter. Again, I got my pan under there because, you know, with anything, you've got where possible fluid can come out. So try to not drop it in it. So let's remove that. Okay. So I got that out. Okay, T40. So what we're going to do now is pry this off and pry this out. Alright, so now I'm going to try to get this hose to go up. Going. There we go. Looks like we almost got her. Okay. So now that the hose is up, I'm going to I had to put my screw in just a little bit to hold her. I'll take my screw back out. Get the screw out, and then she'll slide out at this point. Like I said, this thing is a little tight and it's slippery because you end up with the hydraulic fluid on your fingers, so it gets slippery too. Okay, oh, so there she is. There's the housing. I'm going to get my needle nose and pull the actual screen out. And you'll see there's going to be some metal shavings on this. Okay, it's not actually that bad though. And there's an actual magnet that's inside of it for the metal. So we'll show that when we go to clean it up. So that's it as far as getting that out at this point. All right, so this is the housing, and then this is your screen. And it's hard to see in here, but there's actually little metal shavings, okay? You can see a little bit better right there. So there's little metal shavings, and that's from just wear, break-in, things in that of the engine. Nothing abnormal. Some people have a hell of a lot more. Mine's not so bad. And then there's an actual magnet inside there. Again, there's going to be metal shavings on it. And I'm going to get some needle nose, and we're going to pull that out, and I'll show you. Okay. So now, you'll see there's a little magnet here. Get a hold of it best as I can. If I can. I have to tap it. Just be careful because it can break. So it is a magnet. Damage it. So here she comes. Okay? So there's your magnet. So there's an actual magnet. Hard to see on the video. There's some little tiny shavings of metal on it. And that's what it's there for. So as you're break-in of your engine, and just don't wear and tear, you'll get little shavings. And the idea is to keep it here, because you don't want it going back into your system. So it's a fail-safe. It's to stop everything from going in there. So we're going to clean this up. All right, so what I'm using is just a typical carburetor cleaner. So, little carb cleaner. And there's the magnet, nice and clean. Set that to the side. Here's the housing. We'll clean that up a little bit. Let that dry. And then we'll do the actual tube. And see, just some carburetor cleaner. Then I'll do some compressed air also to blow it out. So do the best of what you can with it. All right, now another thing that I like to do, it's not that you have to do this, and you may not have a magnet, but it is a good idea. So what I'll do is I'll take a magnet, and I actually will run this all the way down inside, okay? And I'll swirl it around and just go around, you know, just in case possibly there's a little bit of metal shaving still left inside there. So it's just a good idea, not a necessity. Okay. All right. So it's all nice and clean. Okay. Gonna drop that magnet back inside. Okay. Throw that back inside it. Let it go down inside there. gonna put the housing back on. There's actually an O-ring that it sits into, okay? And then we're gonna slide her right back into her hole. Get this pipe out of your way. You know, I'm gonna move that a little bit more. Get that out of the way. Slide this back inside. Make sure you find where she goes. Then there's a little, you'll feel it. There's a seat she slides into. Okay, slides right in. Just line her up so you feel that you've got your threads. Again, a T40 fitted. Tighten her up, just like everything. Be careful, not too tight. Okay, and that's it. And now we'll slide this hose back down onto the shaft here, and we'll put the hose clamps back on. Okay, so now just got to get these hoses to go back to that fitting. They're not easy. I mean, take your time. Just got to get them hoses to slide. And again, it's just a matter of getting it down. Okay. However you can do it. I find this is the easiest for me. Alright. Then once she's on, now it's a matter of just putting your hose clamps back over top of your hose again. Alright. Hose clamps are back on to the hose. Screen has been cleaned and replaced. We have changed, I know you can't be able to see it, but the oil filter for the, the hydraulic filter up in here. And the only thing now is to actually put the drain plug back in. And that's it, we're ready to put our fluids in. Alright, so drain plug back in underneath. That's where we're going to fill it. We haven't done that yet, but that's our last step, is to put our fluids back in. It's going to be about 3.5 gallons of fluid. And that's why, again, I had said, make sure you have a big enough pan. I got a very large pan, but that's about 4 gallons of fluid that came out of the machine. So if you don't have a big enough pan, it's going to be a bugger, but you can do it. Stopping and going with it. But make sure you realize there is 4 gallons roughly. All right, so now here we are, and we're ready to fill up our hydraulic fluid again. Always wipe prior. This is going to be behind the seat, between the rear. So remove your cap, and you'll put a funnel up in there. Okay. Your actual dipstick is down there below it. We'll be checking that later after we put some fluids in. I'm gonna get some jugs now and go ahead and fill her up. Now I believe it's, I'd have to look it up, but I think it's 13 quarts typical, but we'll check that. All right, so here's your first gallon. Which is actually 4 quarts. So we'll do 3 initially. Like I had said before, it's really around 13. So what I like to do, as I mentioned before, is I go under a little bit. I don't just dump everything in one shot. I like to be a little shy and then check the actual dipstick and add as I need. I don't want to ever put too much in and have to try to take some out. So I'll just put in 3 of the gallons, which is going to be 12 quarts. And again, we have a filter, if you remember, that we had changed under there, similar to an oil filter. So that itself is going to take almost about a half to 3/4 of a quart anyways, once we run her. Until then, she's going to be dry. So once we start her up, it's going to pressurize, run the fluids, and the filter itself is going to fill at that point, which is going to drop our levels. So that's why I like to go a little low, get the oil filter and the system pressured, and then with the dipstick add of what I need, not just dump too much in at one time, because, you know, like I talked about before. Alright, so we put 3 gallons in. Now if you get the gallons and you get 4, we'll just dump 4 gallons in. Okay, so here's your dipstick. We're going to check it. Okay, it's hard to see on the camera, but basically you can see it still needs more. Alright, so because of that, I'm going to go and I'm going to pour, you know, not a lot, about a half a quart into the reservoir, and we'll check for her again. Alright, so now I've added about 3/4 of another quart. I'm going to check my dipstick. I know it's hard to tell on here, but I'm showing now that it's good, but yet again, we still have a dry filter until we turn her on. So it's going to go down. So now that we're showing good at this point, now we're going to turn the machine on so we can fill the filter up, and then we'll have to add to compensate for that. So roughly 13 quarts are in right now, and being that we still got to fill the filter up, we're going to go ahead and turn her on. That little hesitation is I never did turn it on yet since we did the fuel. So I just got to get into the system. Anyways, now we're going to let it run, not long, 30 seconds or so. So right now what's happening is the hydraulic fluid we're going to pump in the system. Get that filler filled up. Alright, so now that the actual filter itself should be full, and we'll go ahead and we'll recheck it. Alright, so off camera, you know, I topped her off, put about probably another quart or so in, check the dipstick, and now I'm good. And you do want to check your dipstick like cold, not hot. Because fluids haven't settled when it's hot. Again, you know, I will be putting the specs at the end. Some machines may be more, some may be less. That's why I don't go exactly 100% all one time. I like to do it at the end, little by little, and check my dipstick to be safe. But so she's full. So at this point, I'm going to get my rear tire back on, and we'll put the engine panels back together, and that's the end of your 200 maintenance. You know, of course we want to lube everything, check your front axle fluids. That's at 400 hours to replace it, but you want to check them all the time, and it's going to be the same fluid. So it's a HydroGuard transmission and hydraulic oil, so that goes, you know, into your rear hydraulic system, and that's gonna also be for your front axle. So I'm gonna check that with the dipstick, see it, and that's something you just check all the time. 400 hours, you do want to replace it, so we'll show you how to drain and replace that in a video at some point. And again, right now I'm going to go around and do some lubes. We'll do that in another video of showing all the lube points. There's many underneath also the tractor, and that's something, you know, you want to do all the time and at your 200 maintenance. All right, so that's it for the 200 maintenance as far as all the fluids, all the filters. And at this point, I'm going to show, we're going to put the covers back on. So again, just like reverse, this little clips there, that's going to go in the back here. It's going to be hard because I'm doing it with one hand. Make sure your little piece here is pushed out. And then you're going to pull it forward and then turn and push your little lock button, okay? So that's that side. All right, so we'll go ahead, we'll get the other one, and we're gonna, same procedure. We're gonna make sure the back clips are in. Again, it's hard with one hand. So we will, let me reverse fingers or hands, because I am right-handed. All right, so find your clips, put them in the rear. You're gonna make sure these, I know the camera's going all over the place right now. So push in your little clip, turn your little clip, and she's back together. All right, so she's done. I'm ready to run her. And then, you know, after your first run of using her for a little bit, after you've done all this, let her cool down, and then just double check everything. Check for leaks everywhere. You shouldn't have them, but just double check it. Check your fluids again, check your oil level, check your hydraulic level, but wait till she cools down, let the oils and fluids settle. And that's it. Please subscribe, like, and share if you like the content. I will be uploading more videos on the 1025R on any maintenance and repairs.